a new month and I'm here with 5 new book recommendations. So let's get going. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, welcome. My name is Flor and I post new videos every single week talking about books, talking about content creation, talking about planning and productivity, talking about working for yourself, and talking about New York City. If you like this video, of course, you can go ahead and click the subscribe button down below, hit the notification bell so you can be notified of every time I upload a new video every single week. Now, with that being said, we are going to get moving and start with today's video and with today's new 5 book recommendations. First of all, if you're new here, you should know that I try to upload new book recommendations videos every single month with 5 new book recommendations in each of these videos. This video is video number 11, which means there are 50, cannot believe it's 50, but really 50 book recommendations on my channel. So if you have just discovered this video by chance or the algorithm or YouTube recommendations or something like that, and you love books as much as I do, I suggest you go ahead and watch some of the previous 10 videos that I have uploaded, or maybe just some of them, so you can know which books I've been reading and maybe get some new recommendations for yourself. The playlist with all my previous book recommendations will be linked up here right now and also down below in the description box. And now, with all that being said, we are going to get started with the 5 book recommendations for this video. The first book I have to recommend is called Verity by Colleen Hoover. So the fun fact about this book is that I actually bought it in 2019. Then when we moved to Germany, I could not take all my books with me because books are heavy, so maybe not the best thing to move with, but we had a storage unit here in New York, so I put most of my books in the storage unit, and one of them was Verity. A couple years later, I started seeing a lot of people talking about this book and talking about Colleen Hoover. I end up reading one of Colleen Hoover's book that I already recommended in one of my previous videos, and when I came back, I was like determined to go back to the storage unit to get a lot of things, but among those things, this book, Verity, and I wanted to read it. And it ended up being the last book I read in 2021. With that personal introduction out of the way, let me tell you a bit about this book. The main character of this book is called Lowen Ashley. Lowen is a struggling writer. She has written a couple of books, but she never had like a huge success or anything up until she is hired by Jeremy Crawford. Jeremy Crawford is married to Verity Crawford, who is a very successful writer, and she had some sort of accident and she is now paralyzed and she cannot finish a couple of books in a very highly popular series that she used to write. So Lowen is hired by Verity's husband to end the series and write the last books. And in this arrangement, Lowen is supposed to move into the house that both Verity and Jeremy share. She starts going through her things in her study, her manuscripts and stuff, and she ends up discovering something completely different. Instead of finding notes that might help her write the books in the series, she finds what looks like an autobiography by Verity. As you might imagine, at the beginning she doesn't want to read this. It looks very private, but she starts reading it, and as the chapters go by, she starts discovering some things about Verity, some things about what happened to one of their daughters that died a couple years ago. So Lowen is in between this like 2 things. Either keep this manuscript a secret because she shouldn't have been reading it in the first place, or maybe share this manuscript with Jeremy, which, by the way, Jeremy is someone she has started to sort of like fall in love with. So she knows that if she shows this manuscript to him, she has maybe more chances of him falling in love with her as well, and finally leaving Verity, which, as I mentioned, is incapacitated. This is like the plot of the book, and you like start to discover more things about Verity, more things about her husband and their relationship through this manuscript, and how Lowen is trying to figure out what's the truth, what's not the truth. This book for me was really good. I think it's very different from It Ends With Us, which is the other Colleen Hoover book that I read. I know Colleen Hoover usually writes more in the style of It Ends With Us, more like romance with some drama. And this one is more like a mystery or thriller, which is like not right up her alley, but I think she does an amazing job. This book is so good. And if you have been seeing people on Instagram like raving about the ending and what happened and what's the truth after all this, it's because it's that good. So I really liked it. I think it has a great ending. I love when books have endings that leave you wondering like what really happened, or what do I think about what I have just read. I don't know, I like those kind of books, and I like this one, so I highly recommend it. With this last book, I have finally reviewed all the 24 books that I read in 2021, and I wanted to do like a quick summary and mention all of these books in case you haven't watched my previous videos. All the books and the reviews will be linked down below in the description box, but I'm gonna mention them like really quick. I'm gonna read them from my phone because I cannot remember 24 books like this. So maybe you can take some notes and maybe you want to read some of these books. First one, Atomic Habits by James Clear, The Flight Attendant by Chris Boylan, sorry about the last name, Anatomy of a Scandal by Sarah Vaughan, Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid, The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides, Something in the Water by Catherine Stidman, The Lion Game by Ruth Ware, The Sanatorium by Sarah Pierce, The Last House Guest by Megan Miranda, The Midnight Library by Matt Haig, The Last Miss Parrish by Liv Constantine, Still Lives by Maria Hummel, Anxious People by Frederick Backman, One Last Stop by Casey McQuiston, Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid, The Cousins by Karen McManus, The Last Thing He Told Me by Laura Dave, The Last Letter from Your Lover by Jojo Moses, They Wish They Were Us by Jessica Goodman, It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover, They'll Never Catch Us by Jessica Goodman, The Invisible Life of Adi LaRue by V.E. Schwab, You'll Be the Death of Me by Karen McManus, and finally Verity by Colleen Hoover. Hope you like some of these recommendations. You can see all the previous videos where I talk more about these 23 books apart from Verity. They will be linked down below in the description box. Let me know if you have read any of these 24 books that I read during 2021, and let me know how many you read in 2021. Now, with all that being said, let's move on to the 4 remaining book recommendations for this video. The next book that I want to recommend is called The Night Shift by Alex Finlay. This book was actually an ARC, meaning an advanced reader copy, which means that the editorial gave me a copy of this book before it was actually published for me to read it and share my thoughts with them, which I have to say I highly appreciate it. I think 11 videos ago, when I first started with my book recommendations, I could have never imagined that an editorial would actually give me a copy of a book for free in exchange for my review. And I want to say thank you if you watch my book recommendations, if you read books from my book recommendations, all that helps. So thank you very much, and thank you again to the editorial for this book. With that personal note out of the way, I'm going to talk a bit about this book. So this book starts back in New Year's Eve of 1999 in a small town in New Jersey. There are 4 girls that are working a night shift at a Blockbuster, and out of the blue there's an attack, and 3 of these girls end up dead and only 1 survives. The police finds a suspect, but the suspect disappears out of the blue and never to be seen again. 15 years later, there are some girls working at an ice cream shop in the same town, and there's a similar attack. Again, 3 of them end up getting killed and only 1 survives. So when this happens, a lot of lives end up mixing and intersecting. First of all, the girl that survived the attack 15 years ago. Then we have the brother of the person who was accused of the triple murder 15 years ago, who always believed that his brother was innocent. And then we have an FBI agent that's working the case. And in a way, the 3 of them are trying to figure out what really happened. Not only what really happened now with this new attack, but maybe what actually happened 15 years ago, and whether or not the person that they thought was the killer was actually the killer. I really like this book. I think it's right up my alley. I mean, I love reading this kind of books, which now that I'm saying out loud, like I love reading books of people getting killed. That sounds weird, but I love reading mysteries and thrillers and this kind of books. I'm sorry about that, like where people get killed, yeah, basically. But I think this book has like a different twist to it. I didn't expect the ending. I kind of anticipated like 2 chapters getting to the end, but it's a great book, especially if you read this kind of books all the time. You end up figuring out what's going to happen, and this didn't happen for me this time, so I think that makes it a great novel, and I suggest you read it. You go ahead, you buy it, and thank you again to the editorial for this ARC. Books 3, 4, and 5 that I wanted to talk about are all part of the same saga, a saga called A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson, and the first book is called exactly like that, A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. So I first started reading this saga because I think I saw Ava Jules recommended on her Instagram stories, and I usually like the books she recommends, or we end up reading the same things and having like the same feelings towards the books that we read. So I thought if she liked it, I'm probably gonna like it. So I rented the first book from the library and started reading it. So this story is about a town called Fairview. In this town, a couple years ago, a murder happened. A girl called Andy Bell was murdered by her then boyfriend called Sal Singh, and after that, her boyfriend committed suicide. Everyone knows the story. It's like a huge thing, and although some years have passed, it kind of like left a mark in the city. And then we meet the main character of this book. She's called Pip. She's a student at a high school in Fairview, and she knows the story as much as everyone else in the neighborhood, but she's still like unsure. She cannot believe that this guy that she used to know when she was a little girl could have killed his girlfriend. Like, it doesn't make sense, it doesn't go with his character. So she starts a school project that is going to investigate this murder, and she's going to try to figure out with her 17 years old as a senior what really happened. And of course, as you can imagine, nothing is what it seems like, and she's going to unravel a web of lies and people covering for other people and weird things going on in town, and finally, obviously, the truth. So I really like this book. Of course, it's a young adult thriller, so don't expect like a huge thing, but if you like reading young adult as I do, and if you like books by Karen McManus or Jessica Goodman, for example, you're probably gonna like this one. And personally, I think the first book of the saga, A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, is the best one out of the bunch. And then for me personally, it's a decline. Like, I like the first one best, then the second one, and the third one, I'm gonna talk about it. Let's move on to book recommendation number 4. The fourth book that I wanted to recommend is called Good Girl, Bad Blood. This is the second one in the saga that I was mentioning, also by Holly Jackson. This time we see again Pip. Pip is now not a senior anymore and not like a regular girl in town, but she's actually really popular. She ended up solving a mystery that seemed closed many years ago. So she's kind of a detective in town, and she and the person that helped her discover the mystery, which is Ravi Singh, the brother of the boy that supposedly killed his girlfriend a couple years ago, they released a podcast sharing everything about the investigation, everything that we read on the first book. And now Pip is like, okay, I'm done. This was dangerous at times. I am still a teenager. I should not be doing this. I should leave this to the police. This is not my job. But then one of her best friends, Jamie Reynolds, he disappears. Like out of the blue. They're at a memorial for these 2 kids that died a couple years ago, and he's gone, and his family doesn't know where he is. No one knows about his whereabouts. So Pip is like somehow forced by his friend's family to try to help them because the police is not doing a thing, and she knows that she has some power now. She has a podcast with a huge audience because of the success of the previous season. So she knows that if she starts posting again about this disappearance happening in real time, people might actually come through with tips or might actually help in a way, or she might actually pressure the police into looking into this, into solving this mystery. So this is book number 2. I think it's a good sequel to the first one. I kind of like seeing the evolution of this girl that was maybe not so sure of herself or what she was doing, and she evolves into a person behind a very popular podcast. But I don't know, like I feel like it lacks some of the originality of the first book, which is not a bad thing. I mean, when you do a saga, maybe it's sometimes hard to keep up the pace and keep up with the first book and everything that you presented on that universe. But it's a good book, and I would say if you like the first one, go ahead and read the second one as well. And now we have finally gotten to book recommendation number 5 on this video, and as you know, the third one on the saga. This one is called As Good as Dead, and this time, well, we find Pip again, our main character, and Pip has now solved 2 murder cases, not only one. So she is again very popular. A lot of people know who she is, but she starts feeling kind of uneasy because she starts getting this anonymous messages saying who will look for you when you're the one that's gone missing. And she might think, okay, this is a joke, this is someone just that wants to tease me or something like that, but she has this like gut feeling that there's something really wrong with these messages and that someone's actually following her and that she might be in danger. And when she starts seeing like certain patterns in her life and with the things that have been happening to her and some things that happened with a famous serial killer in town from a couple years ago, I wouldn't say she freaks out, but she is like, okay, I should be worrying because maybe something is going to happen. And basically she has to decide to either find this person that is threatening her and following her, or be as good as dead, as the title of the book says. So I mentioned before that I liked the first book the best, then the second one, and that this one was my least favorite. And I'm going to be honest, I think I gave the first one a 4 out of 5 rating on Goodreads. The second one was a 3 out of 5, and this last one was a 2 out of 5. And I don't like when this happens, especially when it's a saga and you're like really eager to finish the whole thing and you sort of like have a relationship with the characters, or even you feel like you know the author or something like that. But this third book for me was at times like unbearable. Like I was reading it, was not an actual book but my Kindle, and I was like going like through the pages like this because it was like, this is too far-fetched, this is too unreal, this doesn't make sense, like the characters are making like really bad decisions, like what, why, what? I was like, nope, I'm sorry. Like maybe the first and second ones made some sense for me, but this third one is like not up my alley. So I don't know. I know some people that have read these books have liked the 3 of them. They have enjoyed the saga as a whole and they like each of the books as much as the previous or the next one. But in my case, this last one was, yeah, I really didn't like it. I'm not gonna lie. I wanted to read it because it was the end of the saga and I wanted to finish it because I usually try not to abandon a book that I started, which okay, might be something for another time, but it was not my thing. And it doesn't mean that I won't be reading any more books by the author, because I think she did a great job with the first one and the second one, and I just didn't like the ending. But just letting you know, as always, I share my honest thoughts and I let you know what I thought about those books. If my review is good or bad, I'm just honest and I'm like faithful to you, to the person watching this video, rather than to an author or an editorial or something like that. So I wanted to share like my true and honest review about this book. So yeah, that is it for today's video and today's 5 new book recommendations. I hope you like them. I hope you like hearing about all the books I read in 2021. I've set up myself to the challenge, the Goodreads challenge of reading 24 books again in 2022. I'm actually a couple books ahead at the moment, so maybe if everything works out, I end up reading more than 24 books. I don't know, maybe it's going to happen. I've been trying to read 36, which means 3 per month, for a couple years now, and it never happens. It always ends up being 24. But maybe, who knows, maybe this year might be the year. Anyways, if you like books, of course you are on Goodreads. You can go ahead, follow me on Goodreads. You can find me as Pereira as usual over there. And you can also follow me on Instagram. You can find me as Pereira on Instagram as well. So There you can see what I'm reading in real time, and you can see like short reviews of the books that I'm reading before I post them here on YouTube. As always, if you like this video, of course, go ahead, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed already, and of course, leave a comment down below. Let me know how many books you read in 2021, how many books you are planning on reading in 2022, and if it's working or if you're on track, ahead or behind that schedule. And let me know which of these books you've read before, or maybe which other books you recommend that I read as well. As always, thank you for watching, and I will see you on the next one. Bye!